All right, let's get
Perfect.
started. It's time to get AI ready in real estate development. I've got here with me Will O'Donnell, Managing Director, Prologis Ventures, and I am Clifton Harness, CEO and co-founder here at Testfit. Will, welcome.
Perfect. Thank you. Excited to be here today.
So we're all interested in what your background is, like where you come from, why you interested in innovating industrial real estate.
Good question. I've actually been at Prologis for 20 years. Joined the company in December 2003. Have served a pretty wide variety of roles at Prologis. Did a lot of our international expansion. I've done fundraising. I've worked on M&A. But the last 7 years, I've run our ventures group. And with ventures, it's really about how do we understand and invest in where technologies or new business models that would be transformational for either Prologis or our customers. To answer your question, I mean, how do I get interested in innovation, especially around industrial real estate? I think it's a fascinating facet of our economy that, I mean, 3% of the world's GDP actually flows through our warehouses. And so it's the underpinning of, I mean, everything in the room we're sitting in is likely come through a warehouse. And it's something that people don't really think about until you get into a situation like COVID or the supply chain breaks. And it's an incredibly complex system that really drives a lot of our economy. So
But so
for
maybe
me,
a better
yeah,
question to stop you for a second is
yeah.
like who is Prologis? We have a lot of architects, people
That's a
that
good question. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's an important one. Give context. So Prologis is the largest global owner of logistics real estate in the world. We own about 1.2 billion square feet in 20 different countries. We're the landlord rather than the operator of the warehouse, but we're Amazon's largest landlord, Walmart, DHL, FedEx, you go through it. But actually, about 80% of our customers are actually small, medium businesses. So one of the pushes we've made as a company is moving beyond the traditional real estate relationship where you negotiated a contract for 3 months and then you try to ignore the customer for the next 7 years and you just collect rent. We've looked at it is there's a tremendous amount of value we could and should be adding during the course of that relationship. So how do we help customers move in faster? How do we help them achieve their net zero goals? How do we provide them the infrastructure they need to operate their buildings, whether it's EV infrastructure or the racking forklifts, et cetera, that go inside the warehouses? So a lot of what we look at as a ventures group is technologies, whether it's autonomous vehicles, robotics, data analytics, that can bring value to our customers in new ways.
So before you have a warehouse
Yeah,
and EV charging stations and all the things that enable you guys to do the services at kind of the tail end of y'all's value prop, you have development.
yeah.
So AI, how are we thinking about AI when it comes to architects, engineers, general contractors, and just development in general?
Yeah, I think AI is candidly not new. It's something that's been around for years. And it's just evolved in their forms. I think in particular, the last year, it's become prominent because of large language models. And what it really did is democratize the use. So anyone could go on to ChatGPT or Google Bard and suddenly experience what AI could do for them. Um, I think where we've, as a company, have invested time, effort, and focus the last 5, 6, 7 years, really understanding how we can use AI to drive our business. And we really view it as the values in a couple of different ways. And one of the reasons why it's also taken off so recently is just compute power in cloud is much more accessible and cost efficient than previously. So suddenly you can run these large models. But really, what AI's value is the ability to connect dots across very large data sources that may be difficult for a human to do that. So if I'm going to do an environmental review, historically people had to read through thousands of pages of documents to really understand what the implications are, maybe past regulations, past rulings, et cetera. AI allows that documentation to be digitalized and then compressed into very clear takeaways. So I think where we've really looked at it and invested in is AI can enhance our decision making. It can eliminate a lot of inefficiencies where people spending time on process, whether it's okay, I've got to enter into information into AutoCAD, for example, and then run different scenarios. I've got to read through a bunch of documentation, etc. The more that AI can actually enable that and provide actionable insights out of it, the more time our development people, for example, can think strategically. They can think through more options. They can run scenario testing.
But
So
it's
I
it's
think,
not just your
yeah.
development people, right? Like it's the
Oh yeah,
consultants, it's everybody in the whole chain that is
mhm.
gonna ideally get the benefit of this.
And it opens up, I think long term a lot more collaboration,
Yeah.
because you think of a process, and this is where we as a company have spent a lot of time, is understanding all the processes that we go through today. And what is the steps that we take to go through an entitlement? What are the steps we go through for designing and speccing out and underwriting potential developments? And innovation occurs when you remove constraints and suddenly free up new capacity, new white space, et cetera. So when we define what our process steps are, we start asking ourselves, well, there seems to be friction in this pair area. Can we apply a technology here that removes the constraint and suddenly makes our people more efficient? So when you start removing a lot of these intermediate steps that are frankly just kind of busy work, then people can focus on a much higher strategic level and collaborate with partners in new ways. And just a good example, and why we've been excited and are a big user of Testfit.
I have to
Oh,
do the lead-in question to the next bit here, right?
okay. I jumped the gun. I got too excited.
No. I mean, it's a good question. Like, I think there's a lot of hot air around AI, and like for me
Yeah,
specifically, I get frustrated because I'm like, I see a lot of trash, and I'm like, they're
yeah,
not really focused on like what the development community is trying to do, which is like create assets effectively.
yeah.
So how has the Testfit partnership changed how Prologis views AI or use it?
I think the Prologis partnership has evolved, and how we use Testfit is kind of back to what I was saying, that we really looked at our development process. And historically, if we found a land site, we would go and we would partner with an architect to do a drawing. They would send it back. We would give feedback, and then they may do some iterations. But suddenly, our development team discovers there's an easement issue, and it needs to change it. So there was just a lot of intermediate steps that would go that was just waiting for work to be done or recompiled. With TestFit, we found that we could immediately try out different scenarios. And if we suddenly discover an easement issue, well, let's see in real time what the implications are. But what it allows us to do with our consultants, our architects, our development people, is then instead of spending time waiting and passing information back and forth, you can all get on the same screen and creatively think and run through 20, 30 different scenarios and in real time see the value benefits of each. And I think for us, we're suddenly, and why our people enjoy it, is they're able to spend more time on what they love about their job, which is being creative, trying to find solutions and maximizing the value of the land, versus before they spend a lot of time kind of just waiting for different input steps to get done. And it removes, I think, some of the friction of just quick iteration and how to test out different scenarios in real time that ultimately leads to a better decision.
Right.
Um, and we've also actually found it really great tool for customers, because if we're doing a build to suit, we can sit down with a customer, and the goal in all these things is partnering. So how do you bring people to the same side of the table? And a tool like this allows our development teams to sit with a customer and instantaneously say, okay, we could do X and Y, and with them understand the trade-offs. If you want more dock stores, this is what it looks like. If you want less or you want different. So it allows us to be much more consultative and be viewed as a partner, because our people are spending time thinking strategically. And to kind of take it back to the underlying question there, AI as a whole, I think that's where we see value. And the challenge that's out there today is, I think half the company startups out there suddenly changed their names to willodonald.ai or whatever it is. Um, But you get into situations where you can throw AI up in the air and hope it hits. But if you do what we did with here, but we're pretty diligent about it, really defining where a pain point is, then you can figure out how do I find the right AI, right insights that enhance our people's ability to make better decisions.
Right. Look, I've been absolutely blown away by Prologis at every kind of scale, like low level, mid level, high level strategy, whatever it is. Blown away. Can you talk about the kind of rigor that you guys take to data? Because you don't get AI without
Yeah,
what?
it's a really good point. And there's a couple aspects there. Is one, the quality of data. So you always hear people say garbage in, garbage out. Um, Being data centric is a commitment, and it needs to be very intentional. And frankly, well, there's a couple things. One, our IT department has built a world-class data infrastructure. I mean, it is, we've had companies come in and start um, patronizing us because we're a real estate company and explaining to us, and then Sanish and the team get out and be like, no, 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 here's our technology stack. And in most cases, actually better than some of these
Yeah.
major technology companies have. So we started with an exceptional foundation, but then it's incumbent on getting the right data in the system, because if we're not entering data or it's incorrect, you have a Lamborghini without gas. Um, we actually got to the point where last year where everyone's bonus in the company, 25% of it was tied to us hitting our data centricity goals. So accuracy across 6 different categories, and we measured it and sent out emails every day updating people on it. No, sorry, not every day, every week. Um, it was a true commitment to getting it done, and we did. But it was really due to the fact that we as a company realized that we had to commit to it and hold people accountable to be truly data centric.
Yeah.
It took a lot of work, but now we have that. It opens up all these possibilities. So now we're in the cool stuff of being able to go back to people and say, we know you put in the hard effort, but look, we can use a tool like Testfit, and we can combine it in with our costing data. We can combine it in some of our proprietary data, and suddenly get insights that we didn't even know would be possible 2 years
Right.
ago.
So, all right. So let's, lots of effort to get AI on
Yeah.
top of, big data models and whatnot. Um, the benefit, I think, of the partnership with you guys, like we learned a lot more about how we want to go about site planning industrial buildings, and that sort of AI already ready to go. Every time we update it, it's not like you need 50 people kind of making sure that the data is accurate. Like it's ready, it's like plug and play, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think one of the values in just how software is designed today, especially in the cloud, is you see continual improvement, and that where the product was a year ago versus where it is now versus where it's going to be 2 3 years ago. And the more people are part of the ecosystem, the better the technology is going to become, because you're gathering all these insights and improvements. So and with cloud-based software, it can be updated real time. So I know that that's something that we've spent a lot of time with you guys in the past year, just really thinking through, from a large institutional player, how we would use the software, what our requirements were, but ensuring that it wasn't designed for Prologis and a company of one, but it would be universal, because we get
I
benefits, but we know that more people are part of it.
I remember some of those conversations. All right, so all right, next big thing is like there is a finite amount of capital to go around, right? You've got to deploy capital,
Mhm.
finite number of opportunities. With the rise of AI, do you think we're going to end up analyzing more things, less things, the same? I mean, what's going to happen to sort of deal flow in the future?
I think it will be a lot more efficient. So it's something like, theoretically, could you build more buildings through AI because it removes steps? Sure, but people are pretty careful about supply and demand and metrics. I think what it will enable us to do is optimize faster to what the highest and best use is at a specific site, from even understanding the entitlement process and how past deals have gone through, how communities view different uses. I think there's going to be applications for AI there. When we're looking at designing buildings, the ability to run through iterations really quickly, as I was saying, even in conjunction with sitting alongside a customer, you're going to end up making a much better decision about what could be built on there and how to maximize returns. And we've all over the years been in situations where we have tied up or we're looking at tying up the land, and suddenly you run into zoning restrictions or entitlement issues or weird layouts. And to be able to flesh that out and test it in a much more rapid pace will allow people to make better decisions earlier. And rather than spending 2-3 months to discover a problem, if I can discover it in 10 minutes, there's a huge benefit to everyone involved.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of start thinking about like,
Mhm.
years of development out, right? Like, the last several years has been like, how do you focus on solving this one site for this one developer, in kind
Mhm.
of the multifamily space. Then you go and meet Prologis. They've got sort of a generational approach to how they want to attack real estate. And seeing sort of planning over time and how we
Yeah,
can be more intelligent, because like these are hard assets. The moment you
yeah,
build them, they're done, right?
yeah.
Very limited kind of editing. So we want to be a lot sharper about the kind of assets we build in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that's very important for us as a company is our net zero commitment. And we've the second largest operator of rooftop solar in the world right now. We're building out this EV charging infrastructure I mentioned. An area we're spending a lot of time is on alternative materials, so green steel, green concrete, etc. I think the ability to use AI tools to validate, test, and project how these materials will perform and figure out how to fit in. And there's a huge value proposition that's going to allow us to adopt these things quicker. And there's challenges now of just cost differences between newer materials and established. And we have to be able to move quickly on a lot of these things to continue to make a difference. And I think AI and tools that people can use to test ahead of time through simulation, et cetera, are going to be just increasingly valuable as companies. I mean, it's not just us that has made this commitment, it's all our customers and all our brethren across real estate, because it's important and the right thing to do. Um, but we need to be able to, I'm not going to put a faulty material in a building and put employees' lives at risk or the our customers' lives. Like, this is really important. So AI is a really cool tool to be able to help accelerate the adoption because we can pull data sets in that we haven't been able to do in the past.
Yeah, I mean, like the promise in my view is, I think we talked about this, like
Yeah.
the sort of level of development that you do on the design is so much deeper, and you're
Hmm.
considering things like, hey, portfolio wide, we have these water penetration issues in these markets with this kind of material,
Yeah.
and like y'all actually have the data to then go like, hey, we're going to go inform the front of the process and say, hey, these are the lessons learned. The AI is hopefully picking up on, you know OpEx issues that drastically impact, what your NOI is at the very beginning of a deal.
Yeah. I mean, we're using AI right now for roof and paving inspections. So historically, we've had to have people walk on the roofs and they take photos, etc. Now we can use drone imagery, but you can then have AI process it. So there's immediate benefit of being able to understand a quicker basis, but over time, we're going to have all this digitized information. And a roof in Chicago performs very different than a one in Arizona for a whole host of factors. If we can get better insights about improvements made, type of materials, how it performed, it's just going to make everyone better and smarter.
Yeah.
So that's, again, being able to digitize this information in a format that then we can apply models against. There's a huge amount of value. And I think, frankly, one of the challenges that we almost face is we don't know what the art of the possible is because we haven't done this before as an industry. This is all new.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of effort we spend both internally to free ourselves of constraints. So thinking, okay, what could be done, being super curious, trying to bring in different perspectives. And it's why I think DEI is very important, because why do you want to hire diverse people? At the end of the day, it's the diverse perspectives that they bring. And if I have 20 people in the room who've been doing the exact same job for 20 years, you kind of know the answer. But if you can bring in diverse perspectives, one, your talent pool is going to be bigger because you're now going after the entire world versus a small
Yeah.
subset. So you can hire the best talent. Two, they're going to bring in a different perspective and they're going to see things different. And then you need an inclusive culture that allows them to ask those questions. So it's actually something really cool. I mean, 70% of my team on venture side is female. And so in real estate, supply chain, and venture, which aren't necessarily, but
Yeah.
we went after and wanted to hire the smartest people.
Yeah.
And we opened up the pool to find the best candidates, and the smartest people who came through happened to be the women, which is awesome. I think the second aspect that's really important is adjacent learnings. So just because someone in real estate hasn't done this, how do we look at other industries and see how they might be using AI and what they're doing to be able to pull it back and try to apply it to our situation?
Right.
So it's something we talk about as a company, is like, how do we be really intellectually curious and challenge existing norms, especially if we know those norms may have changed because technology or constraints have been removed.
Yeah, I think diversity is like Testfit's not where it is without diversity. And another thing is like getting our startup to stretch from
Mm-hmm.
being, high density multifamily to, oh my gosh, these are 200,000 foot buildings and they have like a grading problem and they have logistics challenge inside the site.
Mm-hmm.
Like that caused us to upskill like the problems that we were solving ourselves. And
Yeah.
having done two kind of core markets now, like our team's probably more equipped to handle any kind of building type coming forward.
Yeah.
So, so
No, that's a
what's
good point.
what's the future like? What's the future look? What is kind of our closing moment here for you? Um, paint a ideally good picture.
I mean, I think, and I'll tell her this specifically, the AI, because there's a lot of ways I could take the future. I think where it's going to be really powerful is I've done my job for 20 years, and I know I'm kind of like I'm good at my job, but I'm also tied to the constraints and my past behaviors, because that's what I know. AI suddenly gives me the ability to connect dots across data sets that I never would have thought possible. And it's going to give me some very unique insights that will make me better at my job than I ever could if I continued doing it. And that's where I think the future, especially from an AI point, the more we can define real problems to apply it against and enhance people's decision making, you're going to end up with people who are situations where you're being able to be much more collaborative, where you're removing people from tedious tasks of reading through 10,000 pages of my environmental reports to really focusing on the outcomes and then how do I strategically build plans to deal with that. I think there's going to be a lot more cooperation between people in the sector, whether it's the developers, whether it's the architects, whether it's the consultants, whether the construction, because in real time, people can share ideas
Right.
and take actions on those deals versus having to spend time processing or collecting and or pushing paper. It's kind of like in Office Space, which is that a movie from like the early 90s, but there's the guy who his job was to take the facts to the engineers because he was a people person, right? Like those are the jobs that we waste time on now, and we really want to be able to have our people at the highest and best use. And you hire the best talent to get their ideas. So how do we give them more data and more insight to be able to even come up with better ideas? And
Absolutely.
that's the future I see. And that's where we get excited. And a little plug on Testfit. I mean, it's part of a big reason our excitement there is that it's going to enable our construction and development teams to really spend more time on strategic outputs and really driving value and be able to make faster, better decisions.
Yeah. All right. That concludes our kind of interview with Prologis. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to email me, clifton@testfit.io, or you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn. Oh, there we go. And here we have, I think you download our ROI on AI. We have 6 or 7 companies that kind of give us some case studies. So we have a fairly confident return on investment, but I can say like you figure out how many people at Prologis were counting parking spaces last year compared to how many are counting them this year. It's going to be pretty solid ROI.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, Will.
Yeah, no, this is great, Clifton. Thank you, and appreciate the time here today. So look forward to continuing our partnership and seeing how the world's going to continue to evolve. So have a good one and appreciated this.
All right. Bye.